Have been here from the start and before the start of the AISMS know that this largely grew out of an initial drive by the dean to do a couple of things. One was to develop an adult education or an extended education program for athletes in transitional circumstances. And that, I'm not going to talk about that right now because Ernie's heading up much of the discussion on that and has put a proposal before Magic Johnson Enterprises and has gotten buy-in from them. So that's moving forward. But I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that we've done actually in-house that complements that work. Also, along with that, the other goals of the AISMS began with one of the key goals is to generate revenue. Second goal is to build curriculum and offer valuable student opportunities and positive student outcomes. Third is to develop programs engaging both the communication school and the journalism school. This is the second part of one of the important directives that the dean has put forward to try to find ways to collaborate between the schools and develop programs that can engage individuals working in both schools. Also develop funded research and educational programs, enhance USC Annenberg, further the academic and intellectual discussion of sports and sports media worldwide. And some of the things that we'll talk about here really quickly: staff and faculty who are involved, curriculum development, international programs, programs and conferences, and research with other centers as well. The last time I talked to one of the groups 2 years ago, I introduced my staff, which at that time was John Hackett, and I would like to, 2 years later, introduce my current staff, which is John Hackett, who's sitting at the back. What's that? It's the same exact guy, yeah. And I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we've done the last 2 years. So this is not going to cover a number of things that we've been engaged in because a lot of the programs we've put on were before the original presentation, but I want to talk largely about stuff that has evolved since then, although we will refer back to a few of them. Really quickly, our faculty associates include, in the School of Journalism, Alan Abramson and Jeff Fellenzer, and J.A. Adande. Alan heads up, as you all probably know, the graduate program in specialized journalism that emphasizes sports journalism. And Alan's been a tremendous addition to our faculty and has been engaged in essentially every program we've done. He's also been able to do things beyond even the confines of our program that have been extraordinarily valuable. One of our great student outcomes is that we sent two students from the specialized journalism program to Sochi as licensed journalists, credentialed journalists with the IOC, and they acted as every other journalist has. The number of other universities in the world who sent students as credentialed journalists to the IOC is zero. We are the only group that did that in the entire world, which is a significant accomplishment and says a lot both about Alan's involvement with us and the benefits he brings, but also his engagement in the IOC and what that the good that that's brought us. Some of the other folks who've been involved in it. Let's talk a little bit about the economics of the game. Several years ago, we started a minor in sports media studies. This graph indicates the moment we started it, which was in 2009, 2010. This is a graph that shows all of the various minors that have existed, and it goes through 2012. We could update that, but in any case, the minor goes from zero to one of the most popular minors here. It's now got over 100 students in it. That really doesn't tell the tale in terms of the volume of student interaction. The minor, the great thing about the minor, uniquely about USC, is that the minor does not allow students within the comm school to take it as a minor, so they kind of have to take it as an emphasis. So we get a lot of students from elsewhere, which in terms of generating revenue is essentially free money. So between the various classes in the minor, we teach really about 500, 600 students a semester among the various classes, although some of those classes are outside of Annenberg. Currently, I teach anywhere from 200 to 450 students in a given semester. And the last time we did a count on that, we're running about 55 to 60% students from outside of USC Annenberg, and that includes outside of the journalism school and the comm school. So that's essentially free money from other schools we're pulling in, which is a great thing. The problem is it over relies on one person, that would be me. And the minute I walk away from USC, we need to have a plan for having somebody who can actually engage and bring in 200 students a class to really, what's really important to me, a class that not only is popular but is academically sound and theory based, and have them still coming in significant proportions from outside of Annenberg. So looking at expanding faculty or expanding opportunities for faculty is a really important next step, and we'll get to that in a little bit. With the emphasis in sports journalism, as it says, Alan Abramson leads that up and does a tremendous job on that. We have proposed an online Master of Sports Media and Marketing. That's in the process. We did curriculum and faculty development and some other things on that, and that's in process of being discussed. I don't know if they've ever really finalized the market research, but there's still maybe some work being done on that. Some international programs we've developed partnerships with. The first primary partnerships are with the University of Paris III and the University of Barcelona. University of Barcelona houses the Centre d'Estudes Olympiques, which is one of the most respected sports media studies groups literally in the world and certainly in Europe. And we have engaged them in programs going back and forth. And as you can see, we've taken a number of USC scholars, including PhD students, to France and to Spain to talk about a variety of issues. That has led the Centre d'Estudes Olympiques to propose that we work with them on a really exciting project, which is an online platform for examining the way in which the fan interaction with sports on social media and the way in which fans in what, and I'll come back to this term later, in what Henry Jenkins calls a participatory culture, help create the culture of sport by engagement on social media. They run pilot studies on Facebook, but Facebook is yesterday's news, and so they want to expand greatly into Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and every new social media platform. And so they've sent us a proposal. We're going to be sending back a revised proposal with them. It offers us, engaging this offers us, number one, a really useful and forward-thinking research project that engages universities on two continents, but also steps out ahead of what everybody else is doing in terms of their research of the fan engagement in sports. It also offers us opportunities to go out and reach out to donors and work on development for this research because it can have tremendous appeal and potential, especially for sports media groups, to see how the fans are communicating about and re-communicating about the sports. So the University of Barcelona likes to call this a satellite, an internet satellite, as if it's dangling in the air over the internet, to gather together all this data and allow us to parse it. And hopefully we'll be getting together and working on furthering that project over the summer. The University of Paris III has actually gotten funding from France and the educational system in France to put together a textbook on sports and space. We've produced a variety of chapters on it. I wrote a bunch of stuff about Los Angeles, not surprisingly, and space and pop culture for sports. And we're working on evolving that into a publishable entity. So there's work going on between all three universities. The student opportunities, some of the student opportunities, as I mentioned, Alan took 2 students to Sochi. We've offered students unique internships, and by unique I mean ones that no students at any other schools get, with NBC, Fox, and CBS. We actually have such a good relationship with Fox. They stopped their internship program, but they've been taking individual students from Annenberg as in what they call a mentoring program. Fox has run into the issue, and they're very concerned about it, that many of us have run into and discussed about internships being free labor, and they're very concerned about that and the Fox brand image. So right now, all they're doing is taking a small set of individuals who work then directly with Jacob Ullman or another executive at Fox and work as in a mentoring system, which is, again, a tremendous opportunity for students. Right now, they've only been taking them from Annenberg, and it's been a very limited number. But Fox like I said, Fox Sports has had a tremendous relationship with us and has been very supportive of what we've done, again, since before the beginning. I mean, they've been tremendous about it. We publish roughly 100 internships a month for students seeking internships on our website. We brought executive producers, CEOs, vice presidents, virtually everybody from the sports media world has at one time or another walked through our doors to either talk to students in class, after class, in panel discussions in here and elsewhere. We've opened opportunities for students to visit Fox Sports and CBS Sports to interview executives and on-air talent. Fox has actually opened their doors at their facilities for individual students, and we're working on potentially taking a small group of students over to tour the facilities and talk to some executives. We've opened one-on-one opportunities for students to meet with sports journalists and broadcasters, and it goes on and on and on. We also have placed students in Fox Sports, ESPN, CBS Sports, a number of other places. We have a number of students who've gone from our program directly out into local markets and been able to get positions there. And also in a number of newspapers, especially in the California region. 3 of our students won Telly Awards, the equivalent of an Emmy for TV commercials for a project they completed in COM 383M that was picked up by Fox. Fox Sports ran a little deal through, it was going to be through several classes, but it ended up actually being through my class. And 3 students in the class won it and ended up, the commercial they developed ended up winning Telly Awards, so we had students coming out of USC actually having won a marketing award before they ever graduated. And there are many other outcomes we could talk about. This is really kind of anecdotal, but gives you a sense of some of the success we've had in offering opportunities for students. The Sports and Social Change Speaker Series and our conferences over the last few years, especially over the last 2 years, we focused on diversity issues in sports and had conferences that brought together the top folks from a variety of areas to discuss issues of diversity in sports, which any of you who follow sports news know that has tremendous resonance in the media right now. There's a lot of discussion of a number of issues. In fact, I do a lot of broadcasts with KCBS in San Francisco about a couple a week, and currently, because of Michael Sam and another player who just recently came out, we've had, it's about half to 60% of all of the interviews have largely been on athletes coming out, because there's a running discussion right now. And that's just one of the key diversity issues. It's really important in the discussion of sports and in the discussion of sports media today. So it is it's a perpetual. The spring 2013, we had gender issues in sports, which included Donald Lopiano, who is just to the left of the ugly-looking guy in the tie there. Donald Lopiano is the single biggest name in all of the gender discussion of sports. She is the most powerful figure in driving Title IX to not just be a title, but to be an engaged law. So she's legendary, and most everybody in sports is scared to death of her, but she's legendary in getting stuff done, and has moved on to not really retirement, but moved on to other work and other projects, but had a tremendous career directing that. And then, as you can see, we have a number of other folks who were engaged in that discussion. Last fall, we had a conference on the LGBT experience of sports, in which Adam Rogers from the Lear Center and Evan Brody, who's one of our PhDs, co-directed that program. And I love it when somebody co-directs or directs the program, because number one, I can watch what they do as opposed to running around killing myself doing it myself. But also, it infuses what we do with a new perspective and a bunch of new ideas, which is really healthy for us. So their program is tremendous. They brought in a number of both the athletes who really started the discussion all the way back in the 1970s and on, along with broadcasters, journalists, and academics to talk from a whole variety of perspectives. Just a few weeks ago, we had our conference on issues of race in sports, and we had scholars from the United States and internationally. We had a number of of athletes and of, again, journalists who have been engaged in discussions of this and the long-running issues that recur here. And this dovetails also with another project we're doing here. So I'll get to that in a moment, which is the first of our research projects. About a year ago, we launched the African American Experience in Major League Baseball, which is creating an online digital library of oral histories of all of the African American players who are left, who played in the 25 years after Jackie Robinson broke baseball's color line. We've logged about 50 hours of recording so far. We also have about a half dozen donors who have given to this, so it has been something of great interest to a number of folks who are potential donors for USC and for us. And it's moved a discussion forward. We are partnering with the Major League Baseball Players Association, Players Alumni Association, and the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame have both agreed to give us all the help they can give us on contacting players, getting us together with players, putting together programs and forums for it. So we are working with them, and they've also been publicizing it around to some degree. We also have hired a student worker right now who is working on, believe it or not, and this does not say anything good about Major League Baseball, they've never really collated the information on former players, nor has the Major League Players Alumni Association. So our worker has spent the last month putting together what hopefully will be the spreadsheet for retired baseball players that everybody can refer to, that gives a whole variety of information about them, their background and age and whether or not they're still alive. And so we're putting together that for our project, but it may end up having larger valence in that. So about 15 years ago, one of the things that indirectly led to me teaching sports classes and working on stuff, I'd actually worked in the sports industry. My first job in life was as a sports journalist. But in terms of research, my interest was really fan cultures. I was writing stuff in the early 1990s about the early evolution of what became fantasy sports and its evolution out of other cultures and subcultures in sports. Now, at the time, I wrote about it as the subculturization of sports, which was a language that nobody in our field seemed to get, and nobody, the language really didn't exist for talking about this effectively. And then along came Henry Jenkins talking about participatory cultures, and why I didn't think of the damn word participatory still embarrasses me to this day, because fundamentally what he's talking about is exactly the kind of cultures that evolved over the last 100 years because of the intersection of media and sports and individuals who, when sports go about selling their product, selling their content, they try to create audience engagement that's not entertainment audience engagement. It's not a person sitting in front of a television set. It is a person engaged to the degree that they own the sport or own some part of the sport in some way. And it engages a much greater form of participation than classic entertainment, than the classic model for entertainment used to hold. And I think actually entertainment and other things do as well. But Henry Jenkins gave the language of that. I've had at least one publisher in the last year pursue me about putting that research back together and starting to load it up and get a book out of it, because it was at one point there was some interest in it. And so I've been, on the one side, kind of working to get that jazzed up again, albeit, given all the other work I do, my ability to sit down and do a lot of serious research at the moment is very limited. But also this intersects both a lot of the stuff that Henry's doing. It intersects the project that the Center for the Study, the center in Barcelona wants to put together. So we're working on several fronts of beginning to rev up some research on fan cultures and fan subcultures that hasn't been really engaged in before. The best research in the U.S. on fan subcultures or fan cultures that's been done in the last 10 years has largely been done around college football fans and their engagement at parties and events and tailgating and stuff like that. So there's an open field for some furthering of this research and the discussion of it. And hopefully, it gives us, again, a couple of opportunities to go look for funding from potentially from those involved in sports media who are looking at engaging fans across a variety of new platforms and dealing with the changing platforms for sports, which is another discussion that's very complex and challenging. And also seeking support from donors who are really interested in the subject matter and how it will play out. Across across the new media world that is evolving constantly. Some of the groups, and by the way, I missed about half a dozen groups here, but these are some of the groups on campus that we have worked with and partnered with over the last 2 years. I realized after this was all put together that there were a bunch that we I hadn't listed. There are tremendous opportunities for in the future. First of all, further support for research projects and fan cultures, diversity issues, and a number of other parts of this project. Also, greater diversity in the teaching core at the Institute. We have primarily me, and then we have some other folks who are engaged, but there's a wealth of really interesting material being put out and interesting potential for teaching that goes beyond what we're doing now. Stronger relationships with sports organizations to facilitate even better student outcomes. So there are a number of opportunities we have. One of the things that ideally I would really like to see is the opportunity. John has been a wonderful human being for 3-4 years now. But about 80% of what he has to do is shuffling papers back and forth. We have, I won't say it's an onerous system, but I just did, for reimbursements around here where all the paperwork in it and the number of people that it has to be sent back and forth to ends up taking a tremendous amount of time. Ideally, I'd like John to be able to work more in a sort of deputy director's position where he could go out and do more discussion with people, drawing together other folks on campus and away from campus for discussions on furthering development and furthering projects, and would really like to be able to hand over a lot of the paperwork to somebody who just is primarily focused on the paperwork, and that's their sole work. We have mentioned the possibility. There are a lot of centers and a lot of institutes and stuff around Annenberg, all of whom have to do the same sort of paperwork. The possibility of getting one person whose sole job is doing the financial paperwork for all of the different institutes, or a small collective of people, so that this isn't something that's being an expense in time and in labor as well as in money to each one of the various centers. If that's impossible, it certainly would be good to have somebody move in as the primary paper person who's doing a lot of that, and be able to graduate John up to a job I think is really appropriate for his skills and also appropriate for the MBA he's evolving. Also, adding new classes and ultimately a new position for an instructor. Instructors would be ideal. The fields are ripe for harvest in terms of the subject matter. Forgetting the number of students who will or won't take classes, it's such a rich field for discussion and study, and there are a number of folks around USC and around the country who would really like to further the discussion inside of classrooms and outside of classrooms. I think there are tremendous opportunities for expanding the types of classes, the discussions of classes into areas of public diplomacy and into areas that tie in to public relations and some of the other schools and projects that we have around Annenberg that could offer us, again, a tremendous opportunity to expand this discussion and be leaders in the discussion, not followers at USC and internationally. And I think that's about it. Questions? Thank you.
Before any questions come up, Richard, do you mind getting set up over there with your...
I do have a question.
Yes.
I'm just curious about the fan culture thing, if you've done any research into how the Northwest has developed almost overnight this unbelievable soccer culture.
That's actually, okay, so that's not technically a fan culture, that's a Northwest culture thing. That is a fascinating discussion that has a lot to do, and I hope you're not from Seattle and I don't sound like I'm dissing you on this. Portland is the center of this.
Well, my son went to a Portland game Saturday.
Yeah, they're fanatical.
But the whole culture is just
But Portland has a culture that likes to kind of fantasize that it's European, and it appealed considerably to that. They closed down their entire. So Portland had one of the longest standing PCL stadiums and minor league baseball teams for decades and decades and decades. They closed that down specifically to create the space for the soccer, and it's a fascinating study in regional sports interest. Again, it's like I said, as that indicates, this is an almost limitless field for interesting discussion. So.